As you know, California is proceeding with the construction of high-speed rail, and my firm, as well as many other firms in the United States, are tracking the work that is coming online, and it's a great opportunity for companies to participate in this historic infrastructure. But we realized that through the process of communicating with the High-Speed Rail Authority and all the partners that are engaged in this effort, that knowledge of high-speed rail in Europe is fundamental to really position company well in order to contribute positively to this effort. So my company, which we call it design and research-based firm, invested in a month-long trip to Europe. So I was selected to go. It was a very nice way of spending a month in Europe, exploring and visiting, or exploring, I should say, investigating and understanding some of these stations in Europe, some of which are, world-class example of high-speed rail stations. Not only stations, but also in the context of these stations. It's quite relevant. So, just an introduction to California. California high-speed rail will connect San Francisco to LA. Phase 1. Phase 2 will be Sacramento to San Diego. The total amount of stations will be 24 stations. And just some facts. The distance between San Francisco to Los Angeles is about 450 miles. Any routes between 100 miles and 500 miles is well positioned to have high-speed rail connection, because it's quite competitive mode of transportation compared to driving or flying. When we go lower than 100 miles, people rather drive, is more efficient. Beyond the 500 miles, flying is more competitive. So the range we're looking at is 450 miles, 500 miles in San Francisco to LA is within their range, as well as other other destinations that I visited. Paris to Lyon is even closer. Berlin to Frankfurt, again within that range. San Francisco Bay Area and the greater Los Angeles area is about 25 million people, and that is a fundamental element. So we're not talking just about distance, it's what is the way connecting. So great amount of population, of course, is well served by this type of infrastructure. The predicted top speed will be 220 miles per hour. That will get us from San Francisco to LA in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So again, quite competitive, especially if you think that these stations are not remote from centers. These are at the city centers. So you will cut all the commute to the airports if you will have to compare with flights, right? So quite competitive in terms of getting from one location to the other. So in terms of phasing, as I was saying, 2025 is a predicted service between Silicon Valley and Central Valley, and 2029 San Francisco to LA. Yeah, it's big infrastructure, it's a lot of work. So here in this diagram you see time comparison between different mode of transportation, San Francisco to LA. So you see that we're not calculating only the time spent flying when we compare high-speed rail with flying, but also the time commuting, checking, waiting, baggage, and all of those other things that are involved in the trip. So again, quite competitive, and of course much more competitive than driving. So the trip was intended to understand more what are the lessons learned from Europe, and of course the extensive system of rail and high-speed rail in Europe, of course, can teach us a lot. So the trip that I embarked on started in London to Lille, Liège, and Berlin, and then I flew from Berlin to Paris, and in Paris, Lyon, Turin, Rome, and Naples. Frankly, when I was in Naples, it was already vacation for me. That was another story. So, as I was coming back to United States, I started to formulate some thinking, and this thinking evolved in this presentation. And the result of this trip, really for us as designing firm, is understanding what are the principles of success for high-speed rail stations. And we like to, we like this slide here that is we call it the three lenses approach. Three lenses through which you can understand the challenges and the opportunities of successful high-speed rail stations. So one element is placemaking, the ability of this station of creating remarkable places, and the ability of all the stakeholders involved in this infrastructure to position these stations in urban centers that are alive and vibrant and has the right amount of people living and working in these destinations. Mobility, of course, the need of efficient service, but also an integrated service with all the other modes of transportation. But ultimately, the experience, because mobility is a service. So when we talk about a service, we have to understand our customers and how they feel, how they perceive the experience, how attractive it is to them using high-speed rail versus, again, other modes of transportation. So I will go through these lenses with you today. So placemaking. First of all, high-speed rail can be very different depending where it lands. Okay. So you see two locations here, both in Lyon. One is Gare de Lyon, and the other one is the station close to the airport. And you see just by the aerial map that the context is remarkably different. And you understand also that easily how that means for people experiencing these stations. There is a sea of parking around the train station close to the airport because it really functions as an airport. It's very close to it, and it is radically different from urban stations that are much more integrated to their context. So as you go to this station, this again is the airport, close to the airport. Again, the impact in terms of the visibility and the content is quite different. Again, this is another view that shows how different it is. And when we see the station, really for us, the example that we're trying to bring to the attention of the High-Speed Rail Authority, which is very well aware of the goals and objectives of high-speed rail, is to really understand what is the potential of these stations coming in urban areas. So here is an aerial render of King Cross, one of the stations that I first visited. This is one of the most recent aerial images that I could find, and you see that there is much still to be developed. But as you go to these places, it's remarkable how you as a visitor are not really aware of the construction that's still going on. I mean, the quality of spaces in the open spaces is just remarkable. You have here to the left King Cross, and to the right St. Pancras. St. Pancras is the connection to high-speed rail that gets you to Paris. And local train and metro lines are all connected here, so it's really a vibrant urban environment. And off of the path, just a few steps away, you have moments of different type of gatherings. Again, quality of architecture is just amazing. The entire site was before a dismissed rail yard, And through the process of getting high-speed rail onto the site, developers capture the value of this infrastructure, and now you have one of the most vibrant districts, a new district in London. And that was also possible because the developer paid attention on the mix of users that we're programming for. So as you go to this district, you have really a 24/7 district that is alive all the time. You have students, there are academic institutions, there are professional. Google headquarters is in this district, as well as Paribas and other banking. There are great shopping opportunities, and it's also a tourist destination. So as you walk in the district, you see that the district lives not only from the mobility aspect, not because there are just a lot of people traveling, but also there are people working, taking breaks. There are kids, families, and students. This is an educational institution just, I think it's the London Academy of Art, just a few steps away. Again, this is enable a very vibrant district that is just alive 24/7. That's what we want. As I was mentioning, in London, not everything is completed around King Cross and St. Pancras. And phasing was curated in a way that, again, as you walk the streets, you really understand that things are missing. You're guided in a path that is built and consolidated, and it feels just right. So phasing is a fundamental topic to deliver an experience right off the bat, pleasant to customers, good for the community that lives around the stations. So in terms of phasing, what I found very interesting is what happened in Lyon Pardieu, where the site, which is highlighted here in red, was a military base, a dismissed military base. And so when they decided to move the station from this location here, this is not the central station of Usen. Now it's the central station of Lyon, the main station. But previously there was another station here. They moved it down south because of the needs of high-speed rail. The site was relatively empty at that time. So they strategically positioned another big anchor to activate the site. So they decided that high-speed rail wasn't enough. The segment from Paris to Lyon was the first segment of high-speed rail in Europe, right? So French people were pioneering in that. And so in order to activate the site, to make it vibrant and safe and successful, they decided to pair with another major anchor that still is one of the biggest shopping mall in inner cities in Europe. So it's a big shopping mall, and so I'm not advocating for shopping mall because they're challenging in terms of traffic and how they land in urban context. But imagine this site non-established. By strategically positioning these two anchors, one mobility anchor and the other a retail anchor, they were able to capture two different audiences that lives off a different time of the day, and they have different objectives. And also activated a certain back and forward between these two destinations. And out of that movement and vibrancy that was coming out of this choice, they were able to establish a successful district. Now today, Lyon Pardieu is the second largest business district in Paris, second to La Défense. So it's a quite successful story. As you walk out the street, as you walk out the station onto the street, you are welcomed by a very generous, large plaza with a lot of retail, bicycle everywhere. It's, I mean, for us, we are maybe 99.9% Italian. We know all of this, but to other audiences, such as here in the United States, these images are quite eye-opening. People are not accustomed to trains as we are in Europe. As you walk away from the station through the plaza, then you get to the shopping center with office towers close by. We have a quite extensive system of public transportation that is easily accessible. Again, quite vibrant. It was difficult to find a picture that had not too many people in the perspective. It was quite pleasant to walk around. And I had the pleasure to talk to the head planning director of Perkins+Will, Perkins+Will, no, sorry, Perkins is already Perkins+Will. Right. Anyways, they're going through another round of development. It's so successful that they're embarking in another stage of this site. So what you see here in these glassy boxes what they're projecting to build, and they're keeping a fair amount of mixed uses. So hotel, offices, residence. Again, a remarkable story in terms of how to capitalize on transit. Within this context, this station in itself, it's a landmark, right? It's important to establish this destination as clear, memorable, and just something that people can identify. So one of the greatest example in this regard is definitely Liège, where Calatrava, the architect, really expressed at best his engineering ability. And now, really, this station became a tourist attraction, and people have it on postcards. But it's not just only something that you see. It's something that is also welcome, and you arrive at the station, and whether you're going and taking a train, or meeting a friend, or just want some rest under the canopy, the station itself provides spaces for everybody. You can sit, mingle. There are retails and activities that you can do in the station. It's not a big station, but it's very impressive how engages people and connect people to new identity of this part of town. Same approach with a different language in Berlin, the Hauptbahnhof, something that you can see from the distance. You have chairs, you're sitting, you're enjoying a beer. There are pedestrian bridges connecting the station. This area is all open space and parks. And what the planners around the station decided to do is to keep the architecture minimal, so that the station itself can really play the role of the landmark. But there are other examples that are more, let's say, connected to the history of rails, specifically in Germany. The Hacker Market, it's quite a fascinating area. You have, this is not a picture of the station itself, this is a picture of the viaduct, of the infrastructure, where the arches have been occupied by retail, cafes, and restaurants, and there's open space. The museums are close by, and people are biking. Just another way of treating transit infrastructure. It's quite remarkable how they were successfully, allowing this to make it more integrated. And this is a lesson that even today designers are still using as an example. And in London, this is not a high-speed rail. This is a cross-rail place at Canary Wharf. This is the work of Foster. It's a metro station, underground, 3 floors, 4 floors of retail and movie theaters and all of that. And on top of it, you have a beautiful garden. So when I visited this, I went around and was okay, but let me see the platform, let me go downstairs and see the trains. I go downstairs and it's boarded because the station is there, but the metro line is not built yet. This place was booming. There was so many people anyways. So it's incredible how, architecture can help already making a place vibrant and successful even before the transit, which is the reason why the architecture is there, comes online. So mobility is ultimately the service that we are trying to provide through this station. So from an infrastructural perspective, the location of this station has to be thought through, and in the United States we don't have this. In few locations we have this in fine grain of public infrastructure connections. This is Berlin, which is historically one of the city in Europe that has more rail infrastructure. The Hauptbahnhof is just at the center of two main corridors, north-south, east-west, that connect Berlin to the larger regions. The station in itself expressed that the identity of the infrastructure with its configuration, north-south and east-west. As you enter, the compact station immediately opens to a view that is possible to visitors to experience, and that will give you the possibility to really see the lower platform and the higher platform, even though they are divided by 3 floors of retail. It's quite remarkable. I met the architects that designed this station, and there was an effort of making a cut through this building in order to allow natural light to go all the way down, in order to make it breathe and make it more pleasant to visitors and travelers. The infrastructure was massive, so it was quite an engineering exercise. But again, the way the station is able to show the infrastructure to you and make it easy for people to navigate the station, understand where they're catching the train, even intuitively understand, well, I'm going to that part of the country, of Germany. So I know that it's in this alignment rather than this. So it's quite successful, I find. But in the United States, probably we rarely have this type of configuration infrastructure that already existing, where you can capitalize on the intersection with the station, right? So another example, I go back to Lyon for an example that might be very useful for us working in the United States, is where you basically have the rail alignment, and then you have to deal with you have to try to connect as much as you can public, local transit infrastructure, connecting passengers, from long distance to their to be able to cover the first and last mile of the trip. Right? So in Lyon, the station, the image is a little bit faded. But the station is here. You have the plaza, and the station is surrounded by the alignment of light rail, streetcars, buses, bicycles, and all those other mode of transportation. Just again, a few steps away from the door. As you walk out the door, this is what you see. These are all my pictures. It wasn't staged. It's like this all the time. So from the back of the station, you have the connection to the airport with light rail. To the front on the plaza, you go down and you have a metro connection. And then you're surrounded by bicycle lane everywhere. They really made an effort to make this as much integrated with other mode of transportation as possible. So, other things are possible, to successfully cover the first and last mile of the trip, instead of driving your own car and then parking around the station. That allows for less development opportunity, less parking, you can build more. So one experiment that I find quite interesting is what Deutsche Bahn is doing in one of their stations. Again, not a high-speed rail station, but still a regional station. It's a Zugkreuz, where you walk on the platform, out of the platform, on the main concourse, and you are welcomed by some of these panels that give you updates on all the mode of transportation that are, all the services that are given to you on your ticket, covered by Deutsche Bahn. So you really with your app or through the panels here, are able to understand what is the status of their fleet of electric cars and electric bicycles. They are all plugged in these smart, they call it intelligent mobility stations, where renewable energy charges the batteries of these bicycles and cars. So for us in the United States, specifically in San Francisco, the center of innovation, and the center of innovation also in mobility, which is right now is quite dynamic. What it means? It means that mobility on demand is something that we have to, of course, consider, understanding how we can integrate that as much as possible. Specifically because we have here quite often a lack of public transportation coverage, right? So what we don't want is basically having this station arriving to city. It's a big asset, but then because people will have to walk, will have to drive to this station and park, you'll have a station surrounded by a sea of parking or parking structure. We don't want that. We want urban environment, housing, offices, cafes, and all of those things. So that means that we have to be less dependent on cars and less dependent on car being parked. So thinking about integration of Uber and Lyft and autonomous vehicles are coming in and what that means and how can we integrate them, I think it's a priority. But ultimately, I mean, actually this goes very well with the autonomous vehicles. Experience is, I think, a guiding principle of all of this. People choose their mode of transportation not only because it's efficient, but also because it's appealing to them, it's pleasant, they just feel good. So I try to map some of the key point of contacts that we have to be very careful when we serve the passengers and how we designers can have that moment. So we have, the first one is ticketing and information. So again, this is a presentation, again, the audience here is 99% Italian, so we all know this, but again, to an audience that is not necessarily familiar with trains, actually, forget that, I was a little bit surprised. I did all my ticket here, and some of them were super easy to do with some services, with in the French system. You do it online, it's like airplane, very easy. I was quite surprised that when I did my Deutsche Bahn ticket, I didn't have an electronic ticket sent it to me through email. And they sent me an email, you will receive a mail ticket. And I was shocked because I was 1 week away from a trip. So because they're German, it came on time, perfectly. So no stress. So it's not a consistent system that they have, but it's quite efficient. But if you don't have tickets, which I could have gone without tickets, you can step on this train station, and you're welcomed by many opportunities to get your tickets. Right? So one is these automatic machines. You're always aware of your timing. It's quite easy and intuitive. If you need a personal assistance, you see that the traditional face-to-face type of relation, and SNSF is doing quite some experimentation in terms of how to deliver that service to their customers. So what they have here is almost a travel agency that you have in the station. So you don't only get your ticket, but you can also learn, what are the festivals happening around, and how do I get there, and where do I stay, which hotel. So they serve, they give an extensive service to their customer. Same story in London and St. Pancras. So you have different services for different level of type of customers. So you have business premier services for business travelers. And SP-Rail, I have to say, SP-Rail really depends a lot on business travelers. So it's really, the economic model for SP-Rail is really based on capturing that type of audience, the type of travelers. But if you're not a business traveler, you have a traditional way of getting tickets through machines, but also there's always a person that can help you out. So customer service is quite good, and passengers are well served. But also you have these stations located in around this desk located around the stations that are, again, for everybody. It's not just for travelers, it's also for tourists that will understand what is the new concept happening in London. So the next step as you enter this station is that you're not only catching a train. You go to these places and you have restaurants, cafes, you have top-notch retail and other type of uses for not only the passengers, but also for people that live around these districts. So if you walk these stations, you have businessmen and tourists coming, and it's quite diverse audience. There are two restaurants. This restaurant, I don't remember the name, and there is another restaurant in Gare de Lyon. You literally have to book in advance. This is within a station, and it's quite remarkable. So it's a very successful story. I saw pianos everywhere, so there is this trend of having all these pianos free for people to play. This is just an effort to make these places more attractive and entertaining for people of all sorts, the travelers and visitors, and I think this is very well done and successful. Literally, with people playing the piano, and it's you don't see that in an airport necessarily. Because these stations are well programmed. Again, I mentioned retail, restaurants, food and beverage, but it's also art. So in Liège, you actually have a museum within the station itself. They had a show about Gaudi when I was there, and the art in itself is also distributed around the plazas and becomes, again, one more element of identification of these locations. It's not just transit; it's almost a cultural destination. Again, no stage pictures. All my pictures, no stage. There are literally, tens of kids in line at King Cross taking a picture to the invisible platform of Harry Potter. And you take a picture, you jump, and you go. So these are tourist destinations. It's not just transit. And because of all that, we as designers, this has a huge impact. It's not only pleasant for people, to experience these stations. It's also the provision for the traditional stations or airports and waiting areas and all that is actually reduced to the minimum. Because there is so much to do. First of all, you are in an urban context, so you can literally get to the station 2 minutes before the train leaves. But if you are in advance, you're there already, and you can spend some time. You will spend time in cafes, shop, and all those. Therefore, the provision for the traditional seating and waiting area can be reduced. So wayfinding. If you're having fun, you're having your coffee, your shopping, and all that, you still have to get to your train eventually. So it's important that everywhere you are, you know your train, the schedule, and all of that. So in St. Marcus, again, there is a market and some cafes here, and the time boards are always visible. In Saint-Lazare in Paris, I talked to the designers that worked on that project, and when they were visiting after 2 months, one of the retailer came to the designer and told him, like, thank you for putting that panel in front of my shop. They have like a panel with time, because my sales increase radically. Because people say, like, okay, well, I'm gonna miss. They not only have the next train, they have the next train after the next train. So people can make their choice and take their time, buy a baguette and this other stuff. So they can mingle, but they are stress-free. They don't have to rush. They don't have the anxiety of commuting, of getting the train. So you have boards and times and arrows and indication where you go, but also the architecture in itself can help you orient yourself. The way the structure is aligned, the way stairs are visible, it's important to people don't get lost. And I'm one of the people that always get lost in airport. Some people here know. So in Liège, you are able to see the layout of the station from some vantage point that make it easy to understand which one is the platform that you have to take. So that allows for people to don't get lost. That allows for people easily getting in and out. That has an impact on the space allocation for passenger handling. And the use of light is also strategically used in order to get people intuitively to their route. So again, you are here in Alpanoff, you're a couple of floors under the ground, in the lowest platform. You still have natural light that allows you intuitively to get to the exit. And then the fare gates. So this is what you don't want to see, right? This is what actually you sometimes see, but this is what you don't want to see. It's a mass of people and disorienting. They're trying to get the train. They don't know which train to go, and they're in all this mess. You have ticket control. So what I found quite interesting is that in Europe, what traditionally was the model of checking tickets on the train, right? Now is moving towards checking tickets and control before the platform. So there is some change and some evolution that is happening, and I think here in the United States, it's we embark in this exercise of creating remarkable and efficient train station. We'll have to be careful on these aspects. So sandpackers, you have a boarding and alighting, so entry and exit to the platform, separated, 2 different levels. And everything is treated as an airport, right? You have a ticket control and fare gates and all that. This is for the segment that gets you to Europe. And as you cross this line, though, so I show some pictures of this. Everything is entertaining. There are many people having fun, and you can have shopping and all those things. You're just having a great time. As you cross this line, you suddenly are back in the mentality of a traveler. Like you are wasting your time. It's not pleasant. You're waiting here and checking your phone and waiting for the train. So the way this limit is easy to cross as possible has an impact on how the experience is delivered to the customer. Because eventually what we want to obtain is stations like this that are a great service for mobility. They are able to establish successful and vibrant places, and ultimately they deliver a great experience to their customers. Thank you.
What are they planning to do here in San Francisco?
A train station.
Yeah, do they already know which one?
Yeah. You know the Salesforce Tower?
Yeah.
Right under it, there is already provision, we call it the box, provision for high-speed rail to come in.
Because before they were saying that they would stop at where the current Caltrain is, and then they would have a next.
Yes. The actual connection from Fort and King to the Transbay terminals is still under investigation. There are many options of alignment how to get there, but that is ultimately the goal.
How's that train station is going to be compared to this European
well, as you
example?
as you walk right now to the Transbay terminal, you see already some of the structure most of the structure is already visible. The station is going to be underground. You have bus operating at a higher level, and then you have a retail at the ground floor. So it's going to be a very vibrant and permeable podium, sort of a low street level type of environment. There is a roof garden as you go up on top. There are towers that have direct connection from the roof garden as well as to the retail, as well as eventually to the train. So we'll see, but it's a very strong.
So it's 10 years away for the train to be there?
So in the plan of the High-Speed Rail Authority, in the latest business plan, they are still aiming for a 2029 connection to San Francisco. But again, these are challenging projects, not only for construction, but also for financing.
So when that station is going to be complete, what are you going to take there? Caltrain?
You can, Caltrain eventually will go there, High-Speed Rail will go there. Yes.
So we compare that to flying. What would be the frequency of the trains to LA and the cost?
Well, I'm not aware of the frequency. I think that is still, we'll see what that would be, as I mentioned, there are the old system, phase 1 and phase 2 eventually would be 24 station. Right? There are several stops anyways from San Francisco to LA. 2 hours and 40 minutes, to me, to my opinion, probably is highlighting the possibility of some train zipping from San Francisco to LA with very minimal stops, maybe at Fresno, right? And maybe other trains will do more frequent stops, right? With longer route, longer time, you know, but to allow more connectivity. But we'll have to have the schedule and see, you know, what they're thinking.
And what do you think it's going to cost compared to flying?
Well, for the cost that they declare, and it's a base of, you know, fundamental element of this whole thing, is that it has to be competitive, not only in terms of time, but also in terms of price, with a flight from San Francisco to LA. So that is the intention. Again, right now it's just speculation and intentions.
So what do they do for 10 years now? Is it just bus station?
Yeah, well, yeah, it would be definitely first would be bus operating and you
So
know,
even the
terminal.
low-speed car train will be there right away?
No.
So you didn't mention anything about the Italian stations. There is anything interesting?
Well, I think among the station that I saw in Italy, Torino Porta Susa was very interesting to visit. Unfortunately, it's not at its full potential because you still have two stops possible, Porta Susa and Porta Nuova. And there is an impact on that in terms of success of the new station, because in everybody's mind still Porta Nuova is the main station, and you can get there anyways. So a lot of retail and all the people are there. Porta Susa has 2 floors of retails and cafeterias and all that, and all the beautiful things that we see. Everything is closed. Just because nobody rents it, there's not enough people walking the concourse. So it just, so I wouldn't, unfortunately, I wouldn't call today that a successful example, but not because of the architecture necessarily. It's because the operation of the trains doesn't allow unleashing the full potential of that station. Yeah. I was quite disappointed for what I saw in Rome. I think at Tiburtina, the context doesn't help the station. I don't know if you're familiar with Tiburtina. It's a quite difficult context they have on the front and on the back of the station, and I think there's much more to do on the surrounding that can allow the station to live up to their expectation.
What about Milan? The central station there, and the architecture?
I haven't visited Milan after the renovation. One of our partners in London, Portland Design, has worked in the rethinking of the retail, and I visited them and they told me about it. I personally haven't visited since they went through that process. But I heard great things. I heard that it was quite successful in terms of retail, and people are there, of course. But again, I cannot talk to my personal experience, from my personal experience.
And in US basically we have projects on the East Coast, on the West Coast. Is anything going on in the middle or between the two?
Well, actually, Texas Central Partners, which is a joint venture of private investors, are proceeding with the environmental assessment of connecting Houston to Dallas with high-speed rail. And that is moving quite fast. Again, they're going through the environmental process, but yeah, there are things happening all over the country. I mean, with different level of progress. There is a very fascinating map of the United States from the New York Times that shows all the areas with higher population, the corridors, the urban corridors of the United States, and overlay the segment of high-speed rail that are being considered or the one that being proposed by different entities. And they quite overlap. Because again, there is a correlation between the amount of people and how close they are to each other, and where it makes sense to have high-speed rail serving the people. So there is a lot of potential for growth in the United States for high-speed rail.
I would like to face with you another point I think really important about the security.
Yeah.
So I lived a couple of years in London, and I really liked the border before of the platform, right? But Italians are really good to generate new ideas, and we are not really good to copy ideas, right? What we made in Roma Termini, for example, is a really dangerous for everyone. We create just one main entrance, and one main exit point. So there is
just before the platform.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we try to call it up, but not in a.
If I understand what you're referring to, I visited Termini as I was going to Naples, and I saw this fancy that didn't look anything as something that is permanent. So I think that is a temporary solution. They were checking tickets before the platform, which is again is a tendency that I've been seeing in many other stations. But then as I was walking the platform, I saw Intergilo building a bridge over the platform. So what I'm thinking they're doing is probably, I haven't actually verified that the consideration, but pretty confident that what they're doing is going to be segregated boarding and alighting, something as I was showing for St. Pancras, so that you will get to the upper floor, walk through sort of a bridge, and land more or less half the way on the platform to get to your train, so for boarding. And for alighting, you just be at ground level. So that thing that you're referring to,
it has been changed a couple of years ago, so maybe it takes time.
I think they're going through the process.
But it now is much more dangerous than the past. I mean, if you think about the terroristic attack, there's just one main point of failure for everything. All the crowd is there, right? Okay.
On that point, is there any consideration being made as far as security and stuff? So I was in China, and most of the stations, like, you have to go through security with the bags and everything, like almost at the airport. Is there any consideration being made?
Where in Italy or here?
In general.
In general, I think it's very much a topic of consideration. I mean, of different countries, different approaches, and even again, countries such as many in Europe that had traditionally one system. Seems like not all, but they're shifting to a different system. There is more security, more control before you get to the platform. So they're pushing the line further and further from the train, from the platform. So I'm not aware of any consideration of being expressed explicitly in the United States. My guess is that the tendency will be to, have safe system. So I think Ispiria will have a fair gate. And again, it's not, of course, from a safety perspective, is something that we have to address. What I was trying to highlight with the last images is that it does, though, has an effect to how these infrastructure are open to the public. And for train stations that land into urban areas, it's fundamental that we are able to provide civic spaces. The more you go towards safety and mobility needs, the more impact you have in placemaking and all those aspects that are appealing to people as they are leaving these stations.
Right, but yeah, you could also question is it more dangerous, like people can be more dangerous inside the platform or outside the platform, or maybe all the people gather, right?
I mean, there are even people that say, you know, high-speed rail train is not going to be, attacking high-speed rail train is not as impactful as attacking metro train. They're more crowded. So, but then you have also the perception of safety and all those considerations, and it's a very sensitive topic. But I think it's an element of consideration that is fundamental, and I think it will come up soon.
So we live in a country that is been built for cars
Yes.